There's a certain kind of satisfaction that comes from taking a rough piece of maple or walnut and shaping it, by hand, into something beautiful and functional, something solid, something real. For the past 8 years since I finished my apprenticeship and scraped together enough capital to open Turner Custom Woodworks, that satisfaction has been my driving force. My workshop, smelling perpetually of sawdust and varnish, is my sanctuary. Building bespoke furniture, cabinetry, intricate carvings. It's demanding work, physically and mentally, but it's honest work, and it's mine. At 29, I felt like I was finally hitting my stride. The business was stable, gaining a reputation around the Raleigh-Durham area for quality craftsmanship. I wasn't getting rich overnight, but I was building something tangible, something lasting, through skill and sheer hard work, a concept that seemed vaguely foreign, almost quaint to my own family. My parents, Robert and Eleanor Turner, were academics, retired history professor and perpetually consulting sociologist, respectively. They valued discourse, theory, the life of the mind, manual labor. Even skilled craftsmanship like mine that required intense precision and design knowledge was viewed with a sort of benign condescension. "Oh, Alex's little workshop," Mom would say to relatives, as if I were still a teenager tinkering with birdhouses in the garage. They were proud, I suppose, in their own detached way, but their real investment, their hopes and dreams, were pinned squarely on my younger sister Chloe. Chloe, 26, was the artist, the sensitive soul, the one destined for greatness according to Mom, if only the world would recognize her unique vision. Her current passion was documentary filmmaking. She'd finished a pricey film studies program, funded largely by Mom and Dad, with significant loans from me for equipment and fees that were never discussed in terms of repayment, and was now perpetually developing projects, seeking grants, and building her portfolio. This mostly seemed to involve attending obscure film festivals on my dime, maintaining an aesthetically pleasing Instagram feed, and racking up impressive student loan debt. It'll get around $150,000 last I heard. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister. Or at least I love the idea of the sisterly bond we were supposed to have. But growing up, the dynamic was set early. Chloe was the delicate flower needing constant watering and sunlight. I was the sturdy weed expected to thrive in any condition, preferably out of sight. My good grades were expected. You've always been practical, Alex. My part-time jobs through high school and community college. I skipped the traditional four-year university route, opting for trade school and apprenticeship, were necessary. Good for you to learn the value of work. While Chloe's artistic temperament excused missed deadlines and required endless parental support. Despite this, I soldiered on. Worked double shifts, saved ruthlessly, lived in cheap apartments with questionable roommates, poured everything back into my workshop. My goal was simple: independence, stability, a place of my own. And last month, after 8 long years of disciplined saving, I finally achieved it. I bought my first house. It wasn't a mansion, just a modest 3-bedroom ranch on the outskirts of Durham, needing some work, but solid, with a decent-sized yard, and crucially, a large detached garage just perfect for conversion into an expanded workshop space. It cost just under $400,000. I put down $80,000, 20% of every cent saved through my own sweat and sawdust, securing a decent mortgage rate. The feeling of holding those keys, walking into my empty rooms, planning where my tools would go, where my future would take shape. It was overwhelming, pure, unadulterated relief and pride. I called my parents, excited to share the news. Their reaction was lukewarm. "Oh, a house? That sounds nice, Alex," Mom said. "A bit far out, isn't it? Will Chloe be able to visit easily?" Dad mumbled something about property taxes being high in that area. No real congratulations, just immediate concerns centered, as always, around Chloe. I swallowed the familiar disappointment and changed the subject. 2 days after closing, just as I was sketching plans for the new workshop layout, my phone rang. It was Dad. "Alex?" he began, his voice taking on that overly casual tone he used when he was about to ask for something unreasonable. "Your mother and I have been talking about the new house." "Yeah?" I said cautiously. "It's wonderful, son, really. A great accomplishment." Pause. "But we were thinking, Chloe has been struggling to find adequate space for her editing suite, her equipment. Living in that tiny city apartment is stifling her creativity." I waited. a cold knot forming in my stomach. I knew where this was going. And with her student loans, trying to fund her current documentary project, money is incredibly tight for her, he continued. She needs stability, Alex. A dedicated space to really launch her career. Dad, I interrupted, keeping my voice level. What are you trying to say? Well, he cleared his throat. We were thinking, it just makes sense. You're doing so well with the workshop now. Business is good. This house, it's a bit big for just one person, isn't it? Whereas for Chloe, it would be perfect. A home base, a studio. It would change everything for her. I actually laughed. A short, incredulous bark. Dad, I saved for 8 years for this house. Every single dollar came from my work. Chloe hasn't worked a steady job in her life. How is it fair that I hand over everything I've built because she needs stability to pursue documentary filmmaking? Mom got on the extension then, her voice sharp with disapproval. Alex, don't be selfish. We raised you. We supported you. You supported Chloe, I corrected, the bitterness finally spilling over. You paid for her private university, her master's degree, her trips to Europe, her camera equipment, much of it with money I lent Dad. What support did I get? You're smart, Alex. Figure it out yourself. That's different, Mom snapped. You were always capable. Chloe needs nurturing. So I'm penalized for being capable? I shot back. My hard work means I deserve less? Is that the family value you're talking about? Family helps family, she repeated, falling back on the old mantra. It's your moral obligation to help your sister. My moral obligation does not extend to handing over my legally purchased property because my sister can't manage her finances or chooses a precarious career path. My voice was rising now, the years of suppressed resentment finally boiling over. The answer is no, absolutely not. End of discussion. Don't you use that tone with your mother, Dad yelled. Then tell her to stop demanding I give away my house. I yelled back and slammed down the phone, my hand shaking. I thought that would be the end of it. An absurd, entitled request, shut down firmly. How wrong I was. A week later, a certified letter arrived, formal, legal-looking. My hands felt numb as I opened it. It was a summons. My own parents, Robert and Eleanor Turner, were suing me for my house. I sank into a kitchen chair, the official document trembling slightly in my grip as I read through the legalese, disbelief warring with a rising tide of cold fury. They were actually doing this. The lawsuit laid out their case with a breathtaking audacity masked in formal language. They argued that my current success, my ability to purchase the house, was fundamentally built upon their initial investment in raising me, creating some kind of implied familial trust over my assets. Attached was a bizarrely itemized spreadsheet attempting to quantify the cost of my childhood, everything from diapers to dentist visits, culminating in a demand for repayment of around $300,000, conveniently payable by transferring the house title. The document then pivoted to assert their parental right, almost like feudal lords, to redistribute family assets, meaning my house, bought with my savings, based on perceived need. Naturally, Chloe's substantial student debt from her film degree and her current lack of stable income, focusing on artistic growth, it claimed, established her greater need. The suit even had the gall to state that my successful woodworking business proved I could easily afford to acquire alternative housing, as if houses were disposable commodities I could pick up at will. And the final demand, the one that made me laugh out loud despite the rage churning inside me. They wanted the title transferred directly to Chloe, and for me to continue paying the mortgage for the next 2 years while she got her filmmaking career established. I stared at the pages, the sheer, unadulterated entitlement of it all stealing my breath. They hadn't just asked. They had weaponized the legal system to try and take what was mine, dressing up their blatant favoritism and financial desperation in nonsensical arguments about moral obligations and family trusts. The betrayal felt absolute. My own parents suing me for my house, for Chloe. Okay. They wanted a fight? They had no idea the fight they had just started. The quiet, reliable son, the invisible investor, was done being silent. The first few days after being served were a blur of cold fury and disbelief. My own parents, suing me for the house I'd poured 8 years of my life into saving for, the tangible result of countless hours spent sanding, joining, finishing, building Turner custom woodworks from nothing. And for what? So my sister Chloe, the perpetual aspiring documentary filmmaker, could have a taxpayer-funded, by me, apparently, editing suite? The sheer absurdity of it was staggering. My initial instinct was to hire the most aggressive lawyer I could find, but as I reread the ridiculous claims in their lawsuit, demanding repayment for my childhood Happy Meals as justification for seizing my property, asserting their right to redistribute my assets based on Chloe's alleged need, a different kind of resolve settled in. This wasn't a rational legal dispute. It was a family psychodrama disguised as litigation. Hiring a lawyer felt like dignifying their delusion, not to mention the cost would eat into the very savings I needed to protect. Number 3, I decided I'd handle this myself. I might be a woodworker, not an academic like my parents, but I knew how to research, organize evidence, and build a solid case. My workshop wasn't the only place I valued precision, so I began preparing, meticulously. I gathered every financial document I could find, 8 years of bank statements showing the steady accumulation of my down payment savings, clearly labeled, mortgage documents solely in my name, detailing the loans secured by my business income and assets, tax returns proving my financial independence since I was 18, business records from Turner at Custom Woodworks. I even unearthed old emails from my community college days, politely asking Dad for a couple $100 for specialized drafting tools, only to be met with his standard money's tight Alex figure it out response. Sent the same week I knew he'd funded Chloe's spring break trip to Cancun. Every piece of paper told the same story. Self-reliance on my end, selective generosity on theirs. Word travels fast in families like mine, even when you're not actively participating in the gossip mill. I soon heard, via a hesitant phone call from my grandpa, Dad's dad, a retired carpenter himself and the only one who seemed to appreciate my craft, that the lawsuit wasn't entirely my parents' idea. Apparently, my Aunt Carol, Dad's perpetually disgruntled sister, who always thought my woodworking business was just a glorified hobby, was the one bankrolling their legal fees. Her motives? Likely a mix of old resentments. I never did thank her properly for that awful knitted sweater she gave me 10 years ago. And a shared family disdain for anyone achieving success outside their narrow academic or a white-collar definition. Knowing Carol was involved somehow made the whole thing feel even nastier, more calculated. Meanwhile, Chloe herself seemed blissfully detached from the legal battle being waged in her name. Her Instagram feed, which I morbidly checked occasionally, was full of posts showcasing expensive new camera lenses for the documentary, filters testing the aesthetics of potential filming locations, and vague captions about manifesting creative spaces. No mention of the lawsuit, no hint of stress. Just an ongoing performance of the aspiring artist, seemingly unaware or unconcerned that her patrons were trying to legally seize her brother's home to fund her dream. Or maybe, I thought darkly, she knew exactly what was happening and simply felt entitled to it. The expected family fallout began almost immediately. Kurt texts informed me I was no longer needed for Sunday dinners. Mom's not feeling up to cooking for a crowd. An invitation to a cousin's barbecue was politely rescinded. Things are just a bit tense right now, Alex. Chew. I was being systematically excised, punished for refusing to comply. It hurt, yes, but mostly it felt predictable. I focused on my case and on my grandfather. He started calling regularly, checking in. "Don't let them grind you down, son," he'd said gruffly during one call. "Your father. He lets Eleanor and Carol walk all over him. Always has. And Chloe, well, she learned from the best, didn't she? You stand your ground. That house is yours." His simple, unwavering support was a lifeline. Then came the settlement offer from their lawyer, some bottom feeder specializing in nuisance suits, likely recommended by Aunt Carol. The sheer audacity of it made me laugh out loud. They still demanded the full transfer of the house title to Chloe. They still expected me to pay the mortgage for 2 years. They lowered the emotional damages claim slightly, perhaps their lawyer advised $3 million was pushing it, to a still insulting $100,000, and they demanded a written apology from me for causing familial distress. I emailed back a single sentence. Offer rejected in its entirety. The week before the initial court hearing, my cousin Olivia, one of the few relatives who maintained a semblance of neutrality, though we weren't close, stopped by my workshop unannounced. She looked uncomfortable. "Leo," she began, using my childhood nickname, I shouldn't be doing this, but Aunt Eleanor and your mom, They're telling everyone you threaten them, that you're unstable. I just raised an eyebrow, continuing to sand a piece of cherry wood. Am I? No, of course not, she said quickly. But look, Donna Chloe showed me some texts. She thinks it's funny how she gets money out of you. She was bragging to her friends. Olivia hesitated, then pulled out her phone. She added me to this group chat by accident last year. Never kicked me out. I usually ignore it, but after hearing Aunt Eleanor, I thought you should see. She showed me the screen. My stomach turned. It wasn't just the casual mockery of me being her ATM. It wasn't just her laughing about how easily manipulated I was. I just need to cry a little. Alex always folds. It was worse. There were messages where Chloe actively lied about me to her friends to justify asking for more money. Ugh, need another grand for editing software. Alex's business is struggling, poor guy. Feel like I need to help him out soon, but gotta finish my film first. Followed by laughing emojis. Another message complained about my housewarming gift being cheap. It was a custom-made cutting board I spent hours crafting. And another chillingly, where she responded to a friend asking if I'd be at the graduation party. LOL, no way. He just stand in the corner talking about wood grain. Totally kills the vibe. Told Mom to handle it. The betrayal felt physical this time, a cold fist clenching in my gut. This wasn't just entitlement or family pressure. This was active malice. She wasn't just taking my money. She was trashing my reputation, mocking my livelihood, lying about my circumstances, all while pretending to be the struggling artist. The awkwardness my mother cited in her non-invitation text wasn't the reason. It was the cover story. Thank you for showing me, Olivia, I said, my voice tight. Just watch your back, Leo, she said quietly before leaving. That night, I didn't sleep. The screenshots burned in my mind. Any lingering thought I had of handling this quietly, of just defending my property and moving on, evaporated. They hadn't just sued me. They had systematically used, belittled, and lied about me. They didn't deserve a quiet defense. They deserved exposure. The court hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend meticulously organizing my evidence, printing copies of the damning text messages Olivia had forwarded. My resolve was no longer just about keeping my house. It was about reclaiming the truth. They had underestimated the quiet woodworker for far too long. It was time to show them the strength of solid, unvarnished facts. The day of the court hearing arrived cloaked in a cold, gray drizzle that matched my mood. I wasn't nervous exactly, more like resignedly resolute. I dressed carefully, not a suit I didn't own when I deemed appropriate for this farce, but clean dark slacks, a pressed button-down shirt, and sturdy boots wiped clean of sawdust. I carried a single, meticulously organized binder containing every piece of evidence I needed. My defense was simple: the truth. I arrived at the Durham County Courthouse early, taking a seat near the back of the small courtroom. Then they arrived. Mom, Dad, Chloe, and Aunt Carol. And they were wearing matching outfits. Not subtly coordinated. I mean identical custom-printed t-shirts under their blazers and cardigans. Bright white shirts emblazoned with navy blue cursive script that read, "Family First." I had to physically bite the inside of my cheek to keep from laughing out loud. The sheer, unadulterated audacity. They were suing their own son and brother for his legally purchased home based on nonsensical claims, and they showed up wearing matching propaganda t-shirts like some kind of bizarre cult. It was performance art, designed to project an image of unified victimhood. The only person missing was Grandpa. I knew for a fact he'd refused to participate in this charade. Chloe attempted a dramatic hug as they filed past my row. "Alex!" she whispered loudly, faux concern dripping from her voice. "I forgive you for putting us all through this." I just looked at her, my expression blank, and stepped slightly aside, letting her stumble past. Aunt Carol shot me a look that could curdle milk and hissed "ungrateful" just loud enough for me to hear. I ignored her too. The hearing began. Their lawyer, a nervous-looking man who radiated discomfort, stood to give his opening statement. He spoke vaguely of familial bonds, parental investment, moral obligations, and Chloe's pressing need for stability to pursue her artistic contributions to society. He gestured towards the photo albums they'd brought, glossy pictures of family vacations from when I was a kid, presumably meant to demonstrate their loving investment. He presented Chloe's massive student loan statements as evidence of her hardship, contrasting it with printouts of my workshop's modest business registration, implying my financial stability. He even, I kid you not, referenced the spreadsheet with the estimated child-rearing costs, including the $12.99 Happy Meal from 2003. It was pathetic theater. When it was my turn, I walked calmly to the podium. No lawyer beside me, just my binder. Your Honor, I began, my voice steady. The facts are straightforward. I presented my evidence piece by piece. Bank statements clearly showing 8 years of dedicated savings withdrawal directly for the down payment. The mortgage documents solely in my name, secured by my income. My business licenses and tax returns, proving years of financial independence. The old emails documenting my parents' refusal to provide even minor assistance for my own education. Years ago, while simultaneously funding Chloe's numerous endeavors, I didn't raise my voice, I simply presented the documented reality, countering their emotional narrative with cold, hard proof. The judge, an experienced woman with sharp eyes, listened patiently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. Then came the moment I'd anticipated. She turned her attention to Chloe. "Ms. Turner," the judge began, her tone neutral, "your parents' petition cites your need for stable housing to pursue your career. What is your current employment?" Chloe shifted in her seat. "Well, Your Honor, I'm currently in a transitional period, focusing on my artistic growth and developing several documentary film projects." "I see," the judge said. "And are you employed in any capacity while developing these projects?" "I'm building my brand," Chloe stated proudly, perhaps echoing my mother. "Creating digital content, networking, these things take time." The judge seemed unimpressed. "Ms. Turner, let me rephrase. Do you generate any income whatsoever from your filmmaking or digital content creation at this present time?" Chloe flushed. I have several grant applications pending, and I'm building my TikTok following." "So the answer is no." The judge pressed gently. Not yet," Chloe mumbled, staring at her hands. Aunt Carol started to interject from the back. "She deserves that house more than him. He just works with his hands." But a sharp rap of the judge's gavel and a stern warning silenced her immediately. The judge looked back at my parents, then at their lawyer, her expression bordering on incredulous. "Let me ensure I understand this correctly," she said, her voice dangerously soft. "You are asking this court to compel your son, who has clearly demonstrated long-term financial independence and diligence, having saved for and purchased this property entirely with his own documented funds, and secured a mortgage in his sole name, to transfer title of his home to your adult daughter, who possesses a master's degree, yet currently has no discernible income or employment, based on claims of past child-rearing expenses, and her perceived need." Their lawyer started to stammer something about familial bonds, but the judge cut him off. "I believe I've heard enough." She gathered her papers. "This case lacks any legal merit whatsoever. Petition dismissed." She banged the gavel. "Next case." Just like that, it was over. The aftermath outside the courthouse was pure chaos, just without the expensive catering. Aunt Carol completely lost it, screaming that I was dead to the family, that I'd die alone in my workshop surrounded by sawdust. Chloe collapsed onto the courthouse steps, wailing dramatically about her stolen future, her ruined artistic dreams. Mom rushed to comfort Chloe, shooting daggers at me with her eyes, telling me I'd destroyed the family. Dad just stood there silent, his face grim, refusing to look at me. I saw Grandpa standing near the street corner away from the drama. He caught my eye and gave me a single solemn nod of support before turning and walking away. I didn't engage with any of them. I just walked calmly to my truck and drove away, the sound of Chloe's theatrical sobs fading behind me. That evening I checked the security cameras I'd installed immediately after being served. The footage was both pathetic and infuriating. Chloe, approaching my newly installed workshop door later that night, looking around nervously, then apparently losing her nerve and leaving. Then Aunt Carol creeping up the driveway near midnight, shaking a can of what looked suspiciously like spray paint, only to jump and flee when the bright motion sensor lights flooded the yard. I saved the footage and filed a police report the next morning for attempted vandalism. The temporary restraining order against Aunt Carol was granted easily. Then came the online explosion. Chloe started a GoFundMe. Help me reclaim my dream studio, stolen by greedy brother. Complete with dramatic out-of-context photos. It was quickly flagged and taken down for misrepresentation after several people, likely alerted by Olivia or other sympathetic relatives, reported it. Mom took to local Facebook groups, lamenting my betrayal and lack of family values, only to have her posts removed by admins for violating harassment policies. Aunt Carol posted vague threats, then quickly deleted them. The family group chat, however, became a battleground. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly piped up defending me, calling out my parents' blatant favoritism. "Didn't you guys pay for Chloe's $180,000 education while Alex worked nights to afford community college?" one cousin wrote. Another chimed in. "Remember when Alex asked for $200 for tools and you bought Chloe that MacBook Pro instead?" Even Uncle Wesley, usually silent, posted, "Eleanor, Robert, this has gone too far. You know, Alex earned that house." The carefully constructed family narrative was imploding under the weight of long-suppressed truths. I didn't participate. I read some of it, forwarded key confirmations of past events to my lawyer for documentation, then muted the chat. I filed for the permanent restraining order against Aunt Carol. I sent formal cease and desist letters regarding the online harassment. I cut off all contact with Mom, Dad, and Chloe. Blocked numbers, blocked emails, complete severance. The peace that followed was profound. I threw myself back into my work at Turner Custom Woodworks, the scent of cedar and walnut a welcome balm. Grandpa started coming over for dinner every Sunday, bringing his old woodworking tools. We started working on small projects together in my garage workshop, him teaching me old joinery techniques, me showing him new finishing methods. We didn't talk much about the lawsuit, just enjoyed the quiet companionship, the shared love of the craft. "I'm proud of you, kid," he said one afternoon, examining a dovetail joint I'd just cut. "You stood up for yourself, took guts." I adopted Luna, a goofy German shepherd mix from the local shelter, whose enthusiastic greetings and demands for walks filled the house with uncomplicated joy. I started hosting game nights with actual friends, people who liked me for me, not for what I could provide. Life settled into a new rhythm, quieter, simpler, infinitely more peaceful. Mom still occasionally sends probing texts from new numbers asking for money because finances are tight. I delete them unread. Dad sent one email months ago. "When will you forgive us?" Family should stick together. I never replied. Then about 6 months after the court date, I ran into Nathan, Olivia's brother, at a local lumber supply yard. He looked hesitant, then walked over. "Alex," he said awkwardly, "heard you were back focusing on the workshop. Listen, about everything. The way Aunt Eleanor and Uncle Robert treated you, how Chloe, he acted. I saw it. Stayed quiet. Shouldn't have." He pulled a crumpled envelope out of his work jacket, just like Olivia's description of her encounter with him in her own version of these family dramas. He handed it to me. Inside, $75. "One beer for each time I should have bought you one instead of letting them walk all over you," a note inside read. I looked at him, saw the genuine regret in his eyes. "Thanks, Nathan," I said quietly. Maybe not all bridges needed to be burned completely to the ground, and maybe some could be rebuilt, cautiously, with different materials. But the core family unit, that structure was condemned. Sitting in my workshop now, the late afternoon sun streaming through the window, the scent of sawdust thick in the air, Luna asleep at my feet, I feel content. They tried to take my house, the physical representation of my hard work and independence. They failed. They tried to paint me as the villain. They failed. They tried to maintain control. They failed. The best revenge I've learned isn't loud or dramatic. It's quiet. It's building a life they can't touch. It's finding peace in the boundaries you draw, in the work of your own hands, in the simple, solid truth of your own worth.